Hey everybody, this is Perch, and a viewer question here, which is one I've had as well. And I think part of it may relate to kind of an inflow. This has increased in my channel in the last, I don't know, 30, 45 days. The question goes like this. Hey Perch, love your channel. Thank you for your balanced commentary. Are comics communist propaganda? So many people seem to keep saying that comics are communist propaganda. They don't explain exactly what that means, and they use it as a way to say that the comics are bad. Is that truly the problem with comics? Communist propaganda. I have a hard time taking all that stuff seriously. It feels like we're all supposed to start wearing tinfoil hats. Please explain. Okay, I can't explain. But look, the simplest, easiest answer is this. It is fashionable, popular right now, to label things communist propaganda, or, if you're on the other side of this fence, capitalist propaganda. Those are the things we want to label things as. It hasn't quite taken over from Nazi as a term to describe people, but I don't know, it's getting there. You know, the Nazi term has reduced in stock price slightly, and the capitalist has increased. And to many people, they say they're the same thing. Now, it's worth noting at this point that the people who throw these terms around have pretty much zero understanding of history. It's a Dunning-Kruger effect of going onto YouTube and seeing some person try and draw parallels between Nazis and Trump, or the Communist Party of Stalin and Bernie Sanders. Now, you might say for a second, hey, wait a minute, Bernie Sanders says he's a communist. Well, I mean, sure, but these terms have I don't say watered down, but they shifted and changed over time. And I'm not going to argue with anyone about, which is the 1940s version worse than the 1960s version or the 1990s version of 2000. I mean, like, I don't know. What a boring argument. Seriously. Like, I couldn't get through without falling asleep. Bad behavior is bad behavior. I don't understand this need for people to want to say this is the worst behavior. Why are we categorizing it? There's no point. Once it passes a threshold of bad, who cares? It's like, well, getting killed by being stabbed repeatedly with a knife is much worse than getting killed by being shot with a gun. It's like, that's true that being stabbed sounds more painful and probably would be a lot less pleasant to deal with, but you're dead in either case. So, I mean, we're kind of we're having an argument that's really, we're missing you're bearing the lead of that story, I guess, is the point I'm making. Where comics are concerned, look, there's this need for people to want to label what's going on as comics. So this comic is socialist, this comic is communist, this comic it's got this agenda, that agenda. Here's an idea. Maybe the comic's just bad. Just bad. Consider this for a moment. Are you okay with reading a bad comic, but doesn't have communist propaganda in it? So, I'll keep buying it. Who's that person? Why are you buying it at all? If the comic is bad, it's bad. To me, you had me at bad. The reason it's bad, I don't know that I care. It's just bad. There are comics that come out that are clearly half-assed. The art is the person's using Eric Larson's 30 minutes paid. I know that's not a completely fair thing. I'm exaggerating. But the art's uninspired, poor. The story is convoluted and dumb. The comic as a whole feels like the publisher is doing a cash grab into an event, or I don't know. Nobody cares about this book. There are comics that feel that way. And for the creators of those comics, I'm sure it sucks to, hear that your comic is bad or have somebody insult it or whatever it happens to be. I mean, that's no fun, but still bad. Look, I'll pick on the book that everyone has picked on a bunch. America Chavez, if you read that comic, was pretty bad. Now, I'm sure it appealed to some people because everything appeals to someone, somewhere. I mean, the first time I heard Edie Brickell, I realized there's people out there with just terrible taste, and they will go for things that, nobody in their right mind would want. But by and large, Most people recognize that book as bad. Why was it bad? The dialogue was dumb. The pacing was weird. It was just not a good book. And watching Gabby kind of hack her way into pretending what Latin people sound like and talk like was painful to watch. The thing that always shocked me about that book is of all the criticism. Like I had several people who were Latino Mexican customers, and they're like, "This is offensive. Like this is a racist book." Was a comment that came out because like the way people are talking is like if you this will date me a little bit. Well, like nothing else does. If you remember Babelfish, this service, I guess Babelfish.altavista. See, that's old internet stuff. It would translate for you. You could put in English and it would vomit it back out and whatever. And it was notoriously kind of bad at what it did. It got better, and a lot of people like, but it wasn't the best. If you were using that to try and communicate with somebody, you sounded all hacked together and weird. And then at some point, somebody used that engine, or they were doing like translate into Klingon, translate into Valley Girl, translate like there it would translate into non-languages, but silly things. And that's always what it felt like the America book was doing. It was like somebody put in English, like I need this to sound more, more Latin, and so they would, put in just English and then spit out, I don't know, Gabby E's, and it was painful. Anyway, bad book. Um, I, I saw some people recently making the case that America, the book, was communist propaganda, and I mean, maybe, who knows? But really, who cares? Why? It always feels like people are insecure in their arguments when they want to go into labeling things this way. Same thing, by the way, goes like if you have a critic you don't like and you think they're being a jerk to you on social media, calling them a Nazi, to me, feels insecure. It feels like you really don't have a good case for wanting to trash this person. So you're having to drag other words and other names into it and hope to kind of falsely make your case. It's like you realize you're being childish about your criticism. You realize that you're not really being fair. It's not really accurate what you're saying. So, but if I use the word Nazi, then people will go, "Oh, okay, it's one of those." Well, I have to agree now because I don't want to be on the wrong side of Nazis. So I'll say, yeah, as a bad person. It always feels like there's an insecurity. The same thing feels true when I see a lot of the complaints about communism in books. It feels like the person's, for whatever reason, not confident, just saying this book sucks. And I understand that there will be some people who want to argue with that, but for me, and I'm saying this as a retailer, I'm saying this as a collector, it sucks is enough. If you say, I don't want this, it's bad, close your wallet, go home, you're done. That's okay. It doesn't also need to be all these other things. And the other thing, for what it's worth, and I know there's going to be some people who argue about this. Uh, the opposite of capitalism is not communism. And you may say, "Oh, no, of course it is." No, it's not. Go actually look it up, study these things. These are ideologies. They are not two sides of the coin. There's not only two sides. There's all kinds of different ways to look at, structural, foundational parts of our society. It's not just capitalism and communism. Those are two of the ones that we know. It's two of the ones we read. But again, this is the Dunning-Kruger effect. This is somebody who, opened a book on ideologies and found the top two that they recognized and said, I'm good. I'm an expert now. Off we go. That's not exactly how it works. And if you think I'm insulting some of the, I don't know, who am I insulting here? Right-wing comic people, I guess. For what it's worth, there's a lot of politicians who have no idea what this stuff means either. If for example, if AOC is saying I'm a communist or I'm a socialist, either one, and then going to the Met Gala in a designer dress and taking private planes, no, not real, no, not really. Now I understand hypocrisy is baked into all these ideologies all over the place all the time, but this is peak 2020, 2022, I suppose, in that people will state things that they are, and then their actions are completely hypocritical of this stuff. It's like you see these stories of like, I think we should defund the police, and I have a private police guard that I hire to be, to be my private patrol. Anyone in their right mind looks at that and goes, "But you're a complete hypocrite on every level." But we pass some kind of threshold where nobody cares anymore. It's like, I'm going to say the words, I'm going to do the exact opposite, and screw it. It doesn't matter. I'm just doing my thing. That it blows me away, and that's very much baked into our society right now, which is say one thing, do the exact opposite, but proudly. Like, I'm always in awe of the balls of some of these people who will flagrantly do the opposite of what they're telling everybody else to do, and they're like, yeah, yeah, this is what I'm doing. Yeah, what's your problem with it? Are you a Nazi? It's like, wow. I don't know. I mean, when you see all this stuff about the dumbing down of America, yeah, that's clearly clearly an example of it. It's like, you're no longer able to recognize or acknowledge what's right in front of your face. It's amazing, actually. But I'm sure. So, of course, there are comic creators out there who, again, call themselves communists and socialists and other things on Twitter. Like the politicians, many of them, I think, have no idea what that actually means. It's just a fashionable label that they throw out there because they want to appear to be cool. What's cooler than saying, I'm a communist? Actually, is that cool? I don't know. Like, still think you just sound like a dope, but maybe that's just me. But anyway, if they're writing the comics, you might say, don't their ideas get kind of sprinkled in? Doesn't it penetrate the work that they're doing? And so therefore, and my answer, it will make some of you laugh. I mean, it might if they were good writers. I'm sorry, like in order to get your ideas out there and like sway hearts and minds, you actually have to be a good writer. like you can't if you suck. I don't know that you're going to be very successful at doing that. Maybe you try. I don't know. I mean, I think it's making everything way too complicated. If a writer is out there saying, my goal is to make who's a writer? I'm forgetting who now. Maybe, was it Tom? I think it's Tom Taylor who made the comment like every book that I do, I try and make sure a major character is gay or a member of the LGBTQ community. That's a goal that he has. That's a weird goal. I mean, nowhere in that goal is I'm going to try and make these characters really popular and long lasting, so they'll have a legacy. And I'm going to invest time and energy into trying to build up these characters that we remember them 30 years from now. And now it's like I'm just going for mass, I guess. I mean, but whatever. I mean, you can do what you want. Editors hired you. It's it's your party. But that first, and also, by the way, saying that saying I want to have a LGBTQ character in a comic is different from saying I'm going to try and insert communist propaganda. Those are two different things. As it turned out, and again, this requires opening a book and looking at history, and I know, but communists weren't all particularly fond of the LGBTQ community back in the day. I just sliding that out there. You might want to look up kind of how some of that worked. It wasn't so great. I'm just for in fairness, wasn't great for many of the ideologies back then. But I'm just the two are not they're not mutually exclusive, but they're not intrinsically linked either. So you can say that this Tom Taylor's trying to do his thing. He's putting characters in. I mean, okay, but why are we complicating it with various kind of theories? Like it's like you have a writer or a person, and they are playing checkers, and somebody comes around and looks at it and goes, "Oh my God, I need to study this guy's chess game." And they start making all these theorems about the strategies and other things they use, and they're forgetting the fact that maybe the source person is just playing checkers over here, and it's not particularly elaborate or complex. It's just kind of they paid the person not very much money, and the person doesn't really give a shit about what they're doing, and and so they're just going with what they know and screw it. Like this gets to the agenda argument. I'm not opening up that again, but just consider for a moment that a lot of these people are kind of dumb, and they're doing stuff because nobody's telling them no, and that can be an agenda, but it's a dumb agenda. Like these are not genius stakes. So to the original writer's question, communist propaganda in comics. I mean, or maybe just bad. Maybe just some of these things are bad. How's that? I, you know, I often, I don't know. I can't throw some of these things together sometimes when people are like, oh, look at this clever plot that's going on in comics over here. It's like, well, it doesn't seem that clever, and the comic's bad, and it's not selling. So, are we all just supposed to stand around and point at it and laugh, or like it's hard to be scared of this threat because it just kind of sucks. So, I mean, the tragedy as people, and I am sympathetic to this. The tragedy in all this is people not caring about the outcome, people half-assing the books for whatever reason, because they're super capitalist, super communist. They've not paid enough, whatever the reason is. That the hard part is that the half-assed books. It's hard as a person who loves comics and has collected comics for years and years and years to see half-assery in comics. It's tough to see it. It's tough to think about this thing that you love being treated poorly. At some point, you stop really caring about the reason why it's treated poorly. You don't want it to be treated poorly. If you're a huge football fan and suddenly they're like, we're gonna stock the NFL with people who have no athletic ability at all, but they are activists, and we're going to change the helmets to put slogans on the side of the helmet, and we're going to let the linebacker carry a sign. Like, at some point, you're looking at this going, well, this is not football. Admittedly, it would be hilarious to watch at least one of those games, but it would depress you. Like, this isn't what I want to see. If you change it so much, it's no longer the same thing. It's depressing. But again, the core is a lot of bad decisions were made. It's just bad. Some of those decisions may appear like this agenda or that agenda, but at the core, at the end of the day, it's just bad. And I'm far more comfortable with the person who comes out and says, I think this comic is bad, than the person who comes out and says, I think this comic is, X, Y, and Z. It's just stick with bad. Bad's enough. I don't know. I know many of you will disagree with me. I know there's plenty of people like the person who made the comic, because I'm getting a lot of them. Over the last 30 days, there's been a huge increase in people who are really, really into to pointing this stuff out. And if that makes you happy, I mean, God, more power to you. I mean, you're getting something out of some of these comics. I mean, for me, some of these comics are terrible. They're bad comics, and I get no enjoyment out of them. Let me look on the bright side. You're getting the enjoyment of pointing out how it's subversive agenda at work. I mean, that okay, good for you. But to me, I'm just depressed because it sucks. That's where I'm at. At least you found something to enjoy. Anyway, there you go. Who all did I piss off on this one? I don't know. Somebody. Thanks for listening.